How many of you guys feel like the debate could help you make a decision on who to vote for? Everybody. Okay.
Welcome back to Battleground. Undecided swing state voters on why they haven't made up their minds about this election. All part of interviews with uncommitted voters conducted by Elizabeth Giroux, market research expert at Ipsos. Welcome, Elizabeth. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we hear from some of the undecided swing state voters you interviewed, what are you hearing from people about why they remain uncommitted in this race with, so little time to go?
It's a good question. I get that question a lot. Like, how could people still be undecided, right? Two things come up the most. One, they don't like either candidate. So while both candidates are very different, each of them has issues.
Okay.
The second thing is they don't know enough about Kamala Harris yet.
Okay.
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
You also talk about the presumption a lot of people have about undecided voters that they aren't engaged or paying attention. I've heard like lazy, but that's not true, right? Research says that is not true.
It is absolutely not true. The undecided voters that I talk with are actually very concerned about making the right decision. They know this election is really important. They just don't have enough information yet, or they haven't taken the time to get all of the information that they want yet, but they're doing it now. In the debate, as that clip just showed, is going to be really important.
So earlier this week, as we've mentioned, you've talked to 4 undecided voters from our swing states. And I should add that you did this exclusively for us, so
I did.
Thank you very much. But let's take a look, and then I want your reaction on the other side of it.
I want you to fill in the blank. I'm blank about choosing a presidential candidate in 2024.
I'm just like really torn, and I feel like I shouldn't be, but I feel like I am.
I'm just really unhappy, sad, and concerned about what's going to happen.
I'm annoyed, to be honest with you. Like, out of 330 million people, that's the 2 best that we could come up with.
Very confused. I voted for both Trump in 2016 and then Biden in 2020.
So how many of you voted for Trump in 2016 and then Biden in 2020? 3. Wow. If you had to put your finger on it, what's the one thing that makes you not yet fully decided yet?
What they've done in the past. Trump lost the election. He couldn't admit it. The things that Harris has done in California scares the absolute crap out of me, and she laughs about it.
So I'm really waiting to see what happens with the debate or debates.
The debates are going to be, I think, the most critical point. I don't know. I mean, I hesitate to say this is the most important debate we've had, right? But it is critical. This debate is going to be critical for undecideds in order to make some sort of decision.
Yeah, and switching over to RFK Jr. for a second, even though he's dropped out of the race and he endorsed Donald Trump, he remains a factor. Let's listen.
Let's talk about RFK. Who was considering RFK at one point? Yeah, 3 of you. He dropped out. He's endorsing Trump. How is that going to affect you guys in terms of your voting?
I like the way he talks. I like the way he presents himself, some of his policies. But again, I feel like Trump is like, he wants to do what he wants to do. I'm afraid that he's not going to listen to RFK.
I don't think it made a difference to me one way or the other. It's not a deciding factor. Oh, because he supports Trump now, I'm going to switch my allegiance from Kennedy to Trump. No, that's not going to work for me. No, it's not enough.
It didn't change anything, really. All it did was just disillusion me on RFK. He sold his soul as well.
If he had not endorsed either one, that would have made me a little bit more likely to vote for him in November.
This one shocked me, actually. I threw the RFK question in there just, let's do something else. Yeah. But the shocking part is a lot of them are still considering voting for him if he's going to still be on the ballot as a protest vote. As a comment. It goes back to that earlier comment that they're not satisfied with either candidate and they want to send a message.
That's so interesting.
He's actually not fully out of the running.
Yes, and in a state like Michigan, they're actually insisting that he's on the ballot.
I heard that.
Even though he'd like to be off of it. Okay, Elizabeth, stay right there. You talked to some other swing state voters about the economy, and we'll hear from them next. Battleground will be right back. Welcome back to Battleground. I'm here with Elizabeth Giroux, market research specialist with Ipsos. Okay, we hear all the time from reporters in our swing states about how the economy is perhaps the #1 issue driving this election. Before we hear from some of the voters you've interviewed, what in general are you hearing about the economy?
Okay, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Number one, the economy is absolutely the #1 issue. When we poll, and when Ipsos polls, They say the #1 issue facing America is, and they have them choose, over half of the country says the economy.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
and
yeah.
swing states are slightly above that, actually. So the
Okay.
battleground states are slightly above that. When I ask voters about the economy, though, their definition of the economy is very different than pundits and what you might see in the news.
Tell me.
Right? So the voters think of economy as prices. Inflation mostly,
Cost of
right?
goods.
And the three things
Okay.
that are most important to them: cost of groceries, housing, and gas.
Yes.
So when they say economy, that's really what they're talking about.
That's great. Yeah. So let's hear from some of the swing state voters on the economy, and we'll talk after this.
Are you guys blaming Joe Biden for the prices going up and feeling better under Trump?
Yeah, I wouldn't say blame, but I just remember when things were happening, the prices are going up. The administration kept saying the economy's great. They weren't recognizing just, dude, you're hurting, or something's not what it used to be.
Does that carry over to Harris in your guys' mind?
I wouldn't say I blame her for it. It's the administration, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was her, because I can't even think of one thing specifically that I was like, oh yeah, Kamala Harris did that. I just honestly did not see her a lot at all before now.
So a couple really interesting things. One is that Kamala Harris seems to have a clean slate.
I don't know if I'd say clean slate,
Yeah.
but they're certainly not pinning the entire economy issue on Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And the Trump campaign wants to.
Yes.
And it's not working.
It's not working with
Yet.
these voters.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Right.
And the other interesting thing I thought was something we've been hearing a lot too, which is they're telling me the economy is good. I don't feel that way. I mean, it's politics 101. Don't tell voters they're wrong.
I think that's where the Biden administration went wrong.
Yes.
And I think that guy said it really, really well. He's like, you know what? You guys are telling me the economy is good. And by these numbers that we talked about earlier, right?
Yes.
The government looks at these numbers to say the economy is good. But people weren't feeling it. And so the impression voters got, particularly undecided voters, was, you don't understand me.
Right.
And you're not going to do anything to help me and fix it.
So this is good. I mean, this is good research for Kamala Harris if she wants to talk about the economy, to keep that in mind. Another theme you've been hearing in your research is from voters who say they don't really know enough about Kamala Harris. It's important to remind people she's only been in this race for about 40 days, but she has been the vice president.
Right.
And before that, she was a senator. She's not completely a stranger to us, but let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Would you say that you became any more or less undecided, like any more or less swayable after Kamala Harris started running?
More undecided for me. Crazy to sound, I was actually going for Biden.
You were leaning Biden. Now you're
I wasn't.
more.
I wasn't 100% happy, but yes, I was leaning that way. Yes,
Okay.
just because we kind of know his ways, and I mean, I guess with Harris, kind of nearly didn't feel like we knew her. She was kind of like behind the scenes. I don't, didn't really even think about her much, during the last 3 years.
What does she need to do then to earn your vote?
She's got to put herself out there a little bit more and show that I'm not saying that she's not capable of the job. She probably is, but I just feel like we haven't seen enough yet. I just want people to be able to see that, okay, you know what? She can do this, but I don't feel like we've had enough time yet to see that.
Finally, it's not just reporters and people like me saying Kamala Harris needs to sit down for interviews.
She
it's
absolutely
voters.
does. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this election is Donald Trump's to lose and Kamala Harris's to win.
That's a really interesting way of putting it.
She needs to get out there, just as that voter said. She absolutely needs to do that.
Yeah, I mean, she'll have the benefit of being less known until she doesn't, until she really needs to tell people who she is and what she's going to do as president. Elizabeth DeRose, thanks so much. This was really, really helpful and informative.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you'll have to come back. That's it for now. I'm secupp. See you back here next time on Battleground. This was really, really helpful and informative.
Thank you.
We haven't seen enough yet. I just want people to be able to see that, okay, you know what? She can do this, but I don't feel like we've had enough time yet to see that.
Finally, it's not just reporters and people like me saying Kamala Harris needs to sit down for interviews.
She
it's
absolutely
voters.
does. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this election is Donald Trump's to lose and Kamala Harris's to win.
That's a really interesting way of putting it.
She needs to get out there, just as that voter said. She
Yeah.
absolutely needs to do that.
Yeah, I mean, she'll have the benefit of being less known until she doesn't, until she really needs to tell people who she is and what she's going to do as president. Elizabeth DeRose, thanks so much. This was really, really helpful and informative.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you'll have to come back. That's it for now. I'm Secupp. See you back here next time on Battleground.